Okay, so the installation is complete. You can see that we have installed all the fans, done some wire management, and what I'm going to do next is show how the mining is working so far. And as I walk you through that, one piece of information to keep in mind is the overclock. And I'll show you as we do the overclock settings, there's a good chance the GPU may crash. And in my case, the computer wouldn't boot. And this is again, I mentioned the motherboard manual is important. At least for this motherboard, there is a light indicator of what is potentially wrong. So you can see here in this example, or on this motherboard, they have these 4 lights. One is to do with boot, one is to do with VGA, RAM, and CPU. And in my case, when I did some of the overclock settings, the VGA light came on the motherboard. So again, it's really important to kind of understand the motherboard to troubleshoot when the rig crashes or it doesn't boot. So in this case, what I had to do was, first I started unplugging each GPU, and that didn't work. So then I ended up unplugging all the GPUs, and then that allowed me to go back in, boot the PC, go back into the BIOS. And what had essentially happened was the BIOS had reverted back to the default settings, meaning the 4G wasn't enabled, the PCI settings that we went over earlier went back to auto versus Gen 2. So that was a good learning experience. If the rig were to crash, what are some potential options? So the rig has been running fairly stable for the past hour or so. So what I'm going to focus next is the mining operation, or the Nicehash quickminer overview. If you go on their website, they have a really good videos that kind of talk about the installation process. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the install, but what I'm going to do is kind of show some of the how the software operates and some of the changes you can make. So essentially, go on nicehash.com, you create an account, you download the mining manager, and then you can log in, and you see a dashboard like this. What you would do first is you would start Nicehash. So let me show you that. You can see, because it's using up a lot of memory, the computer slows down a bit here. Okay. So there's a little icon for the Nicehash quickminer on my desktop. So I start that, and you get a screen like this. And then in the background, you can see it's mining for Ethereum. So that's the software that is mining. However, you have this dashboard that you can access remotely from any device. You just need to create a login. And what you see here is we have this one rig, just 6 GPUs. You can stop the rig, and then you go to the mining tab here. And this is where you can see the details about your rig. So you click on the rig name, and you can see it's showing all the GPUs. It's showing the temperature, what is the memory clock setting, the fan speed, the power, etc. And what you see here is if my entire rig, if I were to close it, let's see here. Here we go. So my entire rig is hashing at about 176 megahertz, which is pretty decent. These cards are rated around 28, 29 mega hash. So and you can see these in some instances are certainly going higher than that. Like this one is at 31, 29, etc. And then you can see the efficiency as well right here. So usually, from what I've heard, anything about 0.2 is good. You can see we are, and certainly this particular card is fairly energy efficient as compared to the newer 30 series. But you can see our efficiency is pretty good, almost close to 0.4. And there are a couple different options here to set up the overclock. Either you go in here and click, and you can do it. They have different options of light, medium, and high, or you can do it manually. And I tried the light, medium, and high, and I didn't like the performance. I made it manual, and then once you do it manual, you essentially go to the on the corner and you right click on the Nicehash icon, and you can see OC tune. When you click that, I already have it open here. A screen like this would open up, and the good thing about this is showing you all your GPUs, which brand, and it shows the temperature, speed, and also showing you your mega. And then down here, it's showing you how much power it's consuming, what's your mega hash speed, and then the efficiency, right? So this is the total power consumption, this is the total mega hash for your rig, and this is the efficiency. So there are a few different options. Again, I'm still learning, so the more standard way of doing overclocking, like it says here, the classic method, you change your core clock, your memory clock, your power limit. So what I did learn here is, if you Google online, or if you just search for 1660 Ti or any sort of GPU that you have, there are settings that people have played with and recommend. What I've learned doing some of the research is that every card is a little bit different, what they call the silicon lottery, and you can see in my case I have 6 same cards with different manufacturer, and there's slight differences in their mega hash speed. What is interesting though is I've got 3 ASUS. One ASUS which is card number 0 here, has the highest mega hash, and then the other ASUS 4 and 5, which is on the very bottom, has the lowest mega hash. So even within the same manufacturer, there is difference in the card's performance. So essentially what you want to do is come into this overclocking setting here, and then start with the core clock. In case of 1660 Ti, they usually prefer a lower core clock, so even negative. So you just start reducing the core clock. So in this case, let's say if I were to reduce it more, so it's actually going to go to -120 to -135, and then apply. What I would expect is these numbers to go down potentially. So you can see you need to give them a minute or two to see what the performance looks like. So you're seeing you're doing 176, and now it's a slight decline. It bounces around 176 and slightly under 175, and then our efficiency is also dropping from 366 to 364. So yeah, I played with these settings, so I know what the best settings, or at least I feel like these are the best settings for my setup. So I'm going to go back to that and change it, and you will see this is going to approach more like 176, and this is going to approach more 366. So again, higher efficiency, higher mega hash is what you want, and lower power consumption. So in my case, the core clock is -120, and you do the same thing with the memory clock. And again, you don't want to increase too fast, meaning you don't want to go from 940 to 1200. You want to probably go in smaller increments, and which is the mistake I made the first time I was doing this, is I jumped in larger increments, and the GPU crashed. So you have 3 settings: the core clock, the memory clock, and then the power limit. So I've set the power limit at 80, and the combination of these 3 is giving me the best efficiency and the mega hash in my case. Again, if you don't prefer to do this, you can certainly go back and like I said, Nicehash has this really nice option where you can try those pre-select settings from light, medium, and high, and then the software optimizes the GPU setting for you. So that's pretty much it. Really happy that the rig is fairly stable. We are into some issues from Windows installation to internet to overclock settings, but I'm glad I went through those issues, because I learned a lot from it, and when I build my next rig, certainly would go much faster. So again, quick reminder as you're building this rig, number one, if you have a Windows PC or laptop at home, create a bootable file from that, Windows 10. You could just go on Microsoft and you can, it's free of cost, as long as you have their own copy of Windows on your home PC or laptop. Second is the internet. So I tried the TP-Link adapter. It's essentially, so running long Ethernet cables, it allows you to plug in to your router and then plug in wherever you want to set up the rig and then run the cable from the TP-Link. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. So that was another one that was creating a lot of issues. And the third one is, like I mentioned, the overclock settings. So again, rather than using presets from what you find online, try to play with those settings in small increments, and you'll see, if I go back to the screen, these numbers would change, and then you will see where what's the most optimal setting. So those three big things. Apart from that, in my case, I've certainly oversized the rig. As I mentioned earlier, the PSU is 1600 watts. For a rig of this size, you could probably go with a 1200. And one thing I learned about sizing the PSU is you want to look at the TDP. So that's the total power here. So I have set this at 80%, so it's really showing 64, 67. But if this card were to be set at 100%, that would be 125. And even though we have set that limit, there's potential spike, it could draw up to 125. So 6 cards, that's 750 watts right there. And then your motherboard and these fans, etc., probably take another 100, 150. So let's say it's, what did we say, 6 times, yeah, so that's 6, 750, so 8 of 900 watts. So if you have and usually you want to, be at 80% limit for the PSU, so if you divide 800 by 80%, that'll get you to around 1100. So yeah, the 1200 PSU would be fine for a 6 GPU. In my case, I do plan to add two more GPUs. So that is one of the reasons why I've oversized it. And then, so that was, one way there's potential option to save. Again, the fans, they're more on the expensive side, the Noctua ones. So I look at other fans. And then same thing I mentioned early on, I went with the Asus motherboard because of its stability. And given it's an older motherboard, it takes an 8th generation CPU. So again, that was a little bit more expensive than what I would have liked. So it adds up. But all in all, really happy with the rig setup.